Game, begin.
Hello everyone, my name is Firek, as we already know. So I'm working for Codurance and consultancy company, where we try to deliver well-crafted, exceptional software, right? So probably you can just see that this is a little bit like excerpt or some kind of paraphrase of things which you can find in Agile, right? Well-crafted, exceptional software and everything like that. So it's not actually the accident. We are strong advocates of these movements like Agile, Craftsmanship, or any other approach which actually helps us to deliver value to our customers. So probably, as you know, unfortunately, it's not some easy job to actually just obey all these values. So we just encounter a lot of people just saying, it doesn't work for me, and our company is completely different. We already tried this and it didn't work for me. So it's not easy to actually just be advocate of these approaches. So in my opinion, the main problem with these old monsters, as I call them, is the misunderstanding of the basic things around this movement. So, in this talk, I will try to just take a look closer and just explain why this is the problem. So, as I said at the beginning, in Codurance, we're trying to just have some kind of approach when we base on the values of two main manifesto. And this is the Agile Software Manifesto and Software Craftsmanship Manifesto. The reason why it's so hard for us is because they are very small documents, right? It's not easy for us to have the common understanding in every place, in every company, the same things. So, because it's just like very vague description. And I don't blame people when I go to the project that they have such a diverse view on Agile or anything like that. Because if we take a look at this manifesto a little bit closer, so we have only few sentences, right? Only few of them, just describing the whole software development process. Isn't it amazing? We have like few things only in this manifesto, and we can create the nice, good software. So what we have to do, we just have to value individuals and interactions over process and tools, value working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following plan. Easy, right? So my experience is saying that we don't actually align our work according to these rules. This is the reason why it's so hard to actually say that I'm really agile. Try to go to some kind of job advertisement. Can you find now a company who are actually saying, I'm doing waterfall? Who actually is doing waterfall? No one. Everyone is agile. But the problem, my problem is, when I ask, did you read this manifesto? No. I ask business people, did you read this manifesto? No. And this is the problem, because they don't understand what is the basic value behind this. Do you know, actually, that this manifesto also has some principles? Who read the principles behind the Agile Manifesto? Yeah, it's not even the half of the room. So we have like 12 principles behind the Agile Manifesto, which they're saying about all these things which we are going to speak soon. So this is the problem. I didn't have to. Even I didn't read this first time when I read Manifesto, because I didn't have to. So I didn't have to read about customer satisfaction, what else is there? Embracing constantly changing requirements, delivering working software frequently, business people working and developers working together. I didn't have to read this. I didn't have to read about this simplicity, self-organizing teams, building projects around the individuals, motivated individuals. I didn't have to read this because someone just gave me a solution for that. What kind of solution it was? It was this big, fat Scrum. Someone just will enter and just say, let's do everything in Scrum. So we focus on the customer by creating the product backlog. So what else would we do? So we try to gather some kind of information from the user, creating some kind of backlog refinements. We just have some kind of ceremonies to address all these issues. So I didn't have to read these 12 principles. So this was some kind of Scrum, was some kind of replacement of these 12 principles for me. So this was my first contact with Agile in general. But this is just like when we speak about Scrum. Everything looks very nice. We have ceremonies, everything is well organized. But I think the Scrum is the biggest weakness and the biggest advantage of Agile movement. So it's the biggest advantage because Scrum allows us quite easily just move from the waterfall to the Scrum or any Agile movement. Because we have well-defined blocks. We have sprints, backlogs, sprint backlogs, all the ceremonies around, someone who actually manages us, and it's easy to find the way, find the transition between the waterfall and Agile. This is the reason why no one read the 12 principles. But it's also the biggest disadvantage of Agile movement. The biggest disadvantage because this allows us also to rename everything in the waterfall and just run as usual, without thinking that what this does it mean, what is behind the Agile. So when we don't think what is behind the Agile, we are not Agile. I'm not saying that Scrum is bad, but the problem is also in us. Because this is how this is human nature. I'm going to use this word probably quite often today. It's human nature to make things easy. We don't want to just change so much because we have some habits which we are used to it and we feel comfortable with these habits. So this is the reason why Scrum is not bad. The bad is the way we actually trying to introduce Scrum as an Agile movement. As an Agile methodology, sorry. So some may say, okay, so we have other things. We have Kanban, right? So let's replace the Scrum with the Kanban. But the problem with Kanban is it's not full methodology, Agile methodology. Because how Kanban actually was created? It was created from the lean methods from the factory in the industry. So the Kanban actually focusing on one thing, on throughput of your tasks through your system. It's try to focus on identify the bottlenecks and by introducing some kind of techniques like work in progress, for example, they're trying to create some kind of space when everything goes very smoothly from the beginning to the end. So it it's aligned with the principles of Agile, but it's not full Agile methodology. And this is the reason why people just discover something like Scrumban. Because we needed some kind of cadence, some kind of elements which allows us to organize Kanban, which Kanban doesn't have. And people just sometimes doing exactly the same thing. So they're just taking the Kanban and just replace with the Scrum. Scrum, no, bad, right? So now we have a Kanban. So it's not so easy. So this was the very short introduction to one of the monsters. I didn't cover everything. I have only 40 minutes. I can speak with you about this after this talk. So let's take a look at the second monster, which is Software Craftsmanship Manifesto. It's very similar to the Agile Manifesto. So it's like extension to Agile, because people were frustrated with the Agile and the way actually it was introduced. So they thought that maybe creating another manifesto will solve the problem. So this was also some kind of attempt to explore a little bit more technical side of the Agile movement, because we don't speak too much about the technicalities in the Agile Manifesto. So here we put a little bit more emphasis on the technical side. But I have to be honest, I didn't hear about this manifesto before I joined Coherence 4 years ago. When I was working in Poland, no one heard about this. Because the problem with the software craftsmanship is we never create some kind of framework like Scrum around software craftsmanship. This is just like people discussing what is the good for the software. So, and I also had some problem with the vagueness of this definition. What does it mean? I have Agile, right? Why do I need another thing? So, but this also means that when I read this, I also start to think a little bit more about this without just applying this blindly. I just start to think what all these sentences means to me. So I just check how these things can influence my job and how can I do better things. So let's take a look at each point. So the first point is not only working software, but also well-crafted software. And I read this and it was, what's going on? What is the difference between the working software and well-crafted software? So if I create the software, does it mean that it's well-crafted? So I had to start to think, what does it mean? It means for me that probably we have to just introduce some kind of specific techniques which actually allows us to think that the code is good. So we have a lot of them. So I tried to discover what the different techniques around the TDD. I just start to applying some solid rules on my code. So I just recognize code smells. I explore a little bit behavioral-driven development. So I read some books about rules of simple design. I understand what is the design patterns. Very old thing, but it's still. And all these things, they create some kind of building blocks of your well-crafted software. We didn't speak about this in Agile. Software craftsmanship trying to put some emphasis on some kind of things like which you have to do to create the proper well-crafted software. So we should learn this thing to create, improve also. Do not blindly apply them, but also understand why we want to apply it. So the problem with these techniques, they don't bring our customers direct value. So we struggle. Yes, I want to do the TD, but you are going to be busy with writing another piece of code, which is test, and you are not going to produce production. So I always, in such a case, I want to change this attitude by using some kind of analogy. I call this medicine analogy. I just saying, when you have a problem with your body and you go to the doctor, so what do you expect from doctor? You expect that this doctor is going to use the best possible methods to cure you, right? You don't expect that he's going, let's go to the production, right? We expect from the doctors that they are going to learn and just be the best people, and they're going to apply the best methods. It's a very strong analogy, but in most cases we don't have responsibility for lives. But maybe here in Toulouse you create some spaceships sometimes, or planes, so maybe you have some responsibility for lives. But I would like to see our industry in the same way as doctors, they see themselves. Constantly improve things and just understand that the quality is not something which we can compromise. I'm sorry. So, second point. Not only responding to change, but also steadily adding value. So if we change something, probably we always create some value, right? So it was like, oh, okay, I changed something to make something better. And it was obvious for me, but it wasn't obvious for everyone, because I just recall my previous projects and I just had some epiphany. What happened during my first Agile project? We just react on any change. We didn't care what this change is about. Some changes in the middle of the sprint, some bug fixes, everything was like, yeah, because we have to focus on the customer needs, right? But we didn't reassess what is the business value for this change, if this is any needed thing, right? So we cannot just respond to change, but we have to just reevaluate all these changes in the context of business value. So this creates a lot of conflict. Some kind of, oh, you didn't deliver this in the sprint, but I had like 10 bugs to fix, right? But we didn't never trace these things. So we have to just also think in such a way about this, about the adding value. Oh yeah, this is a nice point. So this is about the cooperation. So in the original manifesto, we have some like individuals and interactions. But we also forget about the one important thing, community of professionals. So I think before I also joined Codurance 4 years ago, I wasn't active. I was just like, take part in some kind of meetup, some kind of community events, but I didn't take any active participation in this event. So I realized when I read this that I have to just change a little bit my mindset. I have to just be open to learn more, expose myself, move a little bit outside my comfort zone, and just do something like this today. Just speak. And just try to organize some groups of interest. Just try to gather people together, because we have to fulfill our other points. Create well-crafted code. And to do that, we have to learn a lot of different things. So I changed my mindset, and now it's part of me. I'm just applying sometimes randomly to different conferences, but this is not random. But when I applied, this just became my part of me, sharing and my knowledge with other people, my point of view. Even if I'm not right, I'm going to learn from you and from the others. And this is the point when actually we're just saying, not only we have to interact internally for our customer, but we have to expand our knowledge just to create things better than they were. Good. So, as I said, you don't have to follow this pattern. It's not everyone like to talk. But I see a lot of people who just take part in organizing things like this, the conference, like other events. We have some very example sitting in the first row. So if you just participate in such a way, it's a good way to start. And later you will find many different ways to expand your knowledge. OK. This is the thing about the collaboration and productive partnership. This point was, I read first time, and I was like, we have collaboration, so why it's not productive? And I have to admit that for a while I didn't understand this point properly, until I just spent a few times like as a consultant into a few projects. What happened there? We just try to advise people as a consultancy, you know. So we just try to advise, and we just giving the advice, listen, this is not going to work, and we just have a list of things why it is not going to work. But our customer just saying, nah, we know, but we are going to do this completely different way, which doesn't work. We know that. So sometimes you have these situations when you go to the customer and just say, let's fix that, or let's do this in such a way, but they say, no, we know. It's not partnership. It's the old way of thinking about creating software, like waterfall, when you just have this bunch of documents, implement, thank you, bye-bye. That's it. So this point, just trying to understand that this is the reason why I said this is extension to Agile, to understand that the partnership is required to actually just get some kind of good collaboration, understanding of things between my business side and also development. And we also have some sins in this area. Because in the past, when we had this waterfall, we didn't explain anything to anyone. This was like I said, this document, implement, OK, oh, does it work? Yes, fine, thank you, goodbye. It doesn't work? You are guilty. But we have to find also the way, as developers, to explain our business people why we're making some decisions, why we have some limitations on our tools. Because sometimes we're choosing some kind of Kubernetes, Node.js, or whatever is the sexiest technology now. We're choosing this one, but later we don't think about what is the effect on our productivity. We have to learn things, right? It takes some time. How does it affect the delivery, which we actually just have to do to our customers? And how does it fit our business needs? Sometimes we just Kubernetes is too big, for example, to our needs. So we have to find a way to explain why we're doing things and align these choices with the business objectives. Good. So, as you can see, just by reading a few sentences, You can change a little bit your engagement to your customer. You can introduce some kind of specific soft elements which actually helps you to shape your software in a little bit different way. So instead of just putting all effort on the customer, we just shift a little bit in this manifesto the emphasis to quality and how this quality provides the business value. But again, all these things are always hard to introduce in our companies because in our projects, in our companies, and anywhere. So because we are under constant scrutiny from the business side, because they're saying, why do you do TDD? It's a waste of time. Right? They don't think in the same way as we. So this is the reason why it's important to explain. So this is the hard part, because we don't have any framework. We don't have well-defined blocks. It's not something which we can easily do. And I have to admit, in this part, sometimes I'm failing. And recently, this monster just gets some really, really strong lie, which is DevOps. So I always like to ask this question, what is DevOps? The silence is a little bit bad. So what is DevOps? Quickly. Just one sentence. Try to summarize this. What? Yes. That's it? This is the only definition, or something else is around? Yes, so this is the hard thing, because this movement doesn't even have manifesto. So we don't have even one good definition. What is DevOps? How many companies are DevOps, or doing DevOps, or whatever? Yeah, so what is DevOps? So you didn't give me an answer. So I already have some separate talk about how DevOps can cripple your teams and everything. So you can find it some in the internet, and Skills Matters. I think it's not the best quality thing. But let's take a look at some definition from Wikipedia. So you mentioned about the automation and other things. So this is a software engineering practice that aims at unifying software development and software operations. What does it mean, unifying? Do we know? Probably not. So the other part, this DevOps movement is to strongly advocate automation and monitoring, from integration, testing, releasing, to deployment and infrastructure management. OK, so they advocate. They don't give you solutions. So DevOps aims at very important, at shorter development cycles, increased deployment frequency, dependency release, blah, 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 blah. So this is very dry definition. Again, it's so vague that actually you cannot go to your company and just apply, yes, I have DevOps, right? So, and the most common implementation is like, let's change the ops team name to DevOps and let's move forward, right? Oh, you know that, right? So, of course, all these elements which we have in this definition are very important. It's very important to have some continuous delivery and short and frequent deployments. It's very important to have automation, monitoring, all this stuff. It's a technicality. This can be easy. Because you have a tool, let's use Jenkins, whatever. Let's use something and just have it. But for me, DevOps is a little bit more. It's about the culture. It's about the way of thinking about the DevOps and development. It's, for me, I just put some like 4 points. It's about the shared responsibility on software development and IT operations. We just have to bring teams together and just allow them to understand the challenges of the IT operations and how does it relate with the software development. Without this, we don't have a DevOps. We have a set of tools, which just doing some kind of nice job around the automation. It's also about the reducing organizational silos. So in the past, at the beginning of my career, it was like software, throw, and DevOps just please catch. And they just catch and they just deploy. And they had a lot of problems. And we didn't know each other at all. So we don't want to do that. This is about the shared responsibility. But the most important thing around the culture, DevOps culture, is to create continuous improvement environments. To my disappointment, actually this part is almost not visible in all these organizations whenever I just go. And I'm always trying to understand why they don't have it. Because again, human nature is around your habits. You just don't want to change too much. And this is the reason why I'm just put so much emphasis on the continuous improvement. Because the continuous improvement means that you have to understand that something is wrong, and you want to fix that. And you want to change that. You want to improve continuously. DevOps is never finished job. It's the constant way to thinking about the things. Sorry. Okay, so I defined these three monsters very quickly. I have only 30 minutes for the rest of the talk, but so we have this DevOps, Agile. They just define some kind of small recipes for things and how to all apply them together, right? So I think let's just do something like this. Let's create some kind of small manifesto. So this manifesto I call Combine Them All Manifesto. This will be like IT theory of everything, or some gun for any manifesto in which we are going to have in the future and we had in the past. So I put just like first point, it's understand. The first value of my new manifesto. From my experience, it's always like that we're trying to introduce something and we don't think about what actually is the problem. So in this manifesto, I want to value identifying the problem first. You have to understand, do some root cause analysis or whatever you want, just to understand what is your problem. And next, you have to check what kind of possibilities, how you can solve the problem, and just evaluate these methods against your unique context, unique problem, which you already identify. So next, you apply the change. And when you apply the change, you have to measure what actually is changing and how this change actually affects your process. Did you improve your problem, or you just introduce a new one? Without this thing, you are not going to have valuable feedback. So the first value is, I understand what I'm doing. So the second point, we have to embrace the one thing. There is no one way to do things. There's no silver bullets which are actually going to solve your problems. So you have to find your own path. So Agile Manifesto just telling you where is the direction. But you have to sit down with your teams, people, business people, and just define what path you want to take. Just applying the blindly things is not going to help. And to understand which steps you have to take, you have to just apply the first rule. So, be courageous. You have to leave your comfort zone to find the ways to fix the problems, to improve your organization, anything like that, because the learning zone is outside the comfort zone. It's outside your habits, as I already mentioned. So the other thing which you also have to be aware, you are going to fail. This is not obvious thing for most of the companies. They don't want to fail, and they desperately protect their own processes because it didn't fail them for a while. It doesn't mean that they are not going to, this process is not going to fail them in the future, but they try to protect it. And what is the most important, when you just move outside the comfort zone, ask experts, people who know, who have been in some kind of places before. Do not try to rediscover the wheel. It doesn't make sense. So, as I already mentioned, continuously improve your process, your place of work, and improve your knowledge. So improve your process, because what actually works for you now may not work tomorrow for you, may not work in 2 weeks, 2 months. So you have to constantly check how does change, what actually your context saying about the current state of the process. Change your place of work, because it's very important to create such an environment when actually you can improve yourself. So you have to just sit down and just say, well, we can do that. No, it's not okay, we don't. You have to just be courage, but you have to know what you're actually doing by increasing your knowledge. And what is the most important? Gather some kind of valuable feedback. If you don't have any feedback from your system, your changes, anything you actually do, you don't know if this is valuable change. So verifiable results are something which is very important. Do not introduce any change just for the change, because you don't know if this is going to work. Okay, this is the hardest point. So keep things simple, but not simpler. This is like very vague, right? But why we want to have things simple? Because we want to, it's easy to move, it's easy to understand, and it's easy to deliver. It's easy to go to the production. But of course, we cannot be too simple, because it is also reduce the clarity of your software or anything you want to change. But you have to be aware that your goal is simplicity. And do small steps, baby steps. Because if you make small steps, you understand where you are. If you just jump from this place to another one, you don't know what is there. So one small step just gives you the possibility to gather information about the change, understand if the change is positive or negative in your context. Okay, this is not obvious point, but be respectful for people. Keep good relationship with your peers, your people. Because, again, if you just go around and you are just friendly to me, it's easier to communicate things to you, because I know that I can just stand here and just make some failure, right? Which is going to be, okay, we will help you. This is very important part, which actually is not so visible in any of this manifesto, except the software craftsmanship maybe, that it's very important to keep the relationship. If you just cooperate with the DevOps, in the past it was some kind of, yeah, you're living in the cellar, and I'm living there on the second floor, so we are not so friendly because I have a cellar. So we have to just bring the people together, just understand them and respect their experience, knowledge, and just try to work together towards the one goal, which is the business objective. In the past, I met few people who actually just destroy my teams. They destroyed my teams because their attitude was constantly not so right, and I couldn't actually just do anything because they said no, without any good reason. So this is very important that we have to be also friendly to the other people, because in such a case, we can create this environment when we grow together. So everything starts from us. We build the foundation of the good works places. So this is my new manifesto. So let's start the website, let's just gather some signs, and we're just going to create new things. This is a little bit joke, but just a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit silly, right, to create new manifesto. But as a software developer, I always would like to apply these rules. I'm not saying that I'm always doing that. So this is just my direction which I want to take in my life, right, in my software developer life. I would like to use these rules because they just create some kind of maybe not so well-defined basic blocks which actually just give me to introduce other things, not only elements which I know from this manifesto. So I would like to also build the future based on the previous learnings, because all these things which you can see in this manifesto are not new. They are just, I took them from something which is based for Agile movement. It's XP practices. So you can read about the simplicity, communication, feedback, courage, respect. Everything was there. But do you know XP practices? Did you read this website which is there since 2002? So all these things were based for Agile movement. We don't have to find new solutions. We don't have to write new manifesto. Things are already there. A lot of things were discovered in the 60s and 70s. Functional programming is not new, for example. So let's find the things learn from the things which we already had in our software development. And we even didn't actually. Just we learned from something which is our worst enemy now, which is waterfall. Because if you take a look at the Scrum is quite similar to this phase, but this is like small iterative things with some adjustments, because we just create the backlog, right? So this is our requirement. So we design things, backlog refinements, spiking, finding some kind of solution technical before sprint. We implement in our sprint. In our sprint, we verify what actually we're doing by using some TDD, acceptance tests, whatever required. And we maintain this by just reacting on the change and providing some kind of bug fixing. So we just have all these elements there. But this is smaller. We evolve instead of just having a revolution. For me, Agile was not, or software craftsmanship, they were not revolutions. They were evolution of the things which we just learned from the past. So, what is the next step in the evolution? Again, this is just my opinion so far. So, probably it's some kind of hybrid. When we are going to choose the right elements from different things, different movements, and we are going to apply based on our new manifesto, right? When we identify what is our context. So, the reason why I'm thinking about the hybrid, because we don't have always environment when we just business always cooperate with us. Developers are keen to change. People are different. We have to accept that. So we face sometimes very highly competitive industries. I don't know, banking, for example, they just always need something on time because they have some regulations. So we have to choose the right elements. And this will be hybrid. This won't be clear Scrum. This won't be clear anything else like Scrumban or Kanban. We will choose techniques which actually allows us to deliver this business value. And not every company has some culture when we just can continuously grow. We have to also accept that. We are going to fail, one of the points of our manifesto, right? So in this hybrid, we will be constantly evaluating ourselves. And we are going to react on the changes in constantly changing world, changing context, which we are going to have in our companies. So in the hybrid model, I'm not going to be Agile practitioner. I'm not going to be DevOps engineer. I'm not even be crafter. I'm just going to be professional who deliver the best possible software to my customer. And that's it. Thank you. Still 2 minutes.